Have you ever found yourself in a place where nothing seems right? Where time seems distorted and reality slips from your grasp? Today, you'll learn the story of Alex and Laura, two ordinary travelers who, when they stop at an isolated gas station, discover that some stops have a price, and it's higher than they could have imagined. Get ready for a scary journey full of mysteries. Throughout this video, you'll experience the tension, the chills, and the dilemmas that arise when the impossible becomes reality. But before we begin, subscribe to the channel right now. Leave a like if you're a fan of spine-chilling horror stories, and activate the bell so you don't miss the next episodes. Each story brings a new surprise, and this one will make you look back before you go to sleep. The sky was covered in heavy clouds, blocking any trace of moonlight. The winding road seemed to stretch on forever, flanked by tall trees that formed a natural and suffocating tunnel. Alex, at the wheel, was focused on keeping his eyes open while Laura, in the passenger seat, stared out the window, fighting exhaustion. The drive had been long, and they were both anxious to reach the city where they would start their lives over again. "We have to stop soon. I can't drive like this anymore," Alex said, gripping the steering wheel. Laura nodded, pointing to a rusty sign that appeared on the horizon. "There, a gas station." The sign blinked erratically, with partially faded letters that read Myler Gas Station, open 24 hours. As they approached, they realized that the place looked like it had come from another decade. The gas pump had an old-fashioned design, and the convenience store, with its lights off, seemed like an echo of something long abandoned. Alex parked next to the pump and turned off the engine. "This is what we have. It'll do." Laura looked around with an expression of discomfort. "It's very empty. It doesn't even look like anyone works here. Maybe they're sleeping. I'm going to get gas. Check out the store. Maybe they have something to eat," Alex suggested. Laura hesitated, but eventually agreed. She got out of the car, hugging her coat against the cold that seemed more intense than usual. As soon as she entered the store, a smell of dust and old wood enveloped her. Despite the open sign, everything there seemed frozen in time. The shelves were full of expired products, faded packaging, and a thin layer of dust covering everything. Outside, Alex watched the pump's display. The meter was slowly rising, but the sound of the gasoline clicking was barely audible. The silence around him was unsettling. He looked at the empty horizon, feeling a slight pang of discomfort. Inside the store, Laura heard the faint sound of music coming from a radio on the counter. The tune was old, and she felt a chill. "This is so weird," she murmured. Laura hesitated before approaching the counter, where the radio continued to play. The music was monotonous, interrupted by hissing, but it sounded like an old recording, like something from a long time ago. She looked back toward the store entrance and saw Alex filling up the car. His back was turned, but he seemed restless, looking from side to side. "I need to be quick," she thought, heading for the shelves. She picked up a bag of chips that looked intact and a bottle of water. When she touched them, she noticed that the wrappers were hardened, as if time had crystallized the objects. Outside, Alex felt a sudden chill. He stopped filling up the tank and ran his hand over his arm, trying to warm himself. The wind had picked up, bringing a strange smell, something he could only describe as old smoke. Looking at the car, he noticed something that made him freeze. Long, dark handprints were imprinted on the side. He took a deep breath, trying to rationalize. "Maybe it's oil or grease stains," he told himself, even though he knew it didn't make sense. Inside the store, Laura picked up the items and placed them on the counter. That was when she noticed something curious. An old diary, with a worn brown cover, was lying next to the radio. Curiosity overcame fear, and she opened the first page. Blurred letters formed a sentence. All who pass through here must pay the price. Laura took a step back, feeling her heart race. She turned the page, but it was empty. Before she could decide what to do, a shrill sound echoed through the store. She turned quickly and saw that an old television, which had previously seemed off, was now on. On the screen, grainy images showed unfamiliar faces, accompanied by names and dates. Outside, Alex called out to Laura, but she didn't answer. He walked to the store's entrance and stopped when he saw something reflected in the glass door. The shape of an indistinct figure, with dark contours and an oppressive presence. "Laura!" he shouted, rushing inside. Laura looked up from her diary and stared at him. But before she could say anything, the radio turned up loud, filling the room with deafening static. The radio went silent abruptly, leaving the store in an unsettling silence. Alex looked around, searching for the source of the previous sound, while Laura remained motionless, clutching the diary tightly. "We have to get out of here," he said, holding her arm. Laura nodded, but something in the back of the store caught her attention. A partially opened door revealed stairs that led down to a dark basement. She felt a mix of curiosity and fear, but Alex pulled her away before she could get any closer. "Not now. Let's go," he insisted. Outside, the car waited. Alex tried to start the engine, but it only grumbled, refusing to start. He tried again, turning the key harder, but with the same result. "Great!" Car broken down in the middle of nowhere, he grumbled, hitting the steering wheel. Laura looked out the window at the road. Something seemed different. The trees that had been static before now seemed closer, as if they had moved. The darkness around them seemed thicker, swallowing up the details of the horizon. "Alex, something's wrong. The road. It's not like it used to be." He got out of the car and looked back, trying to understand what Laura was saying. It was true. The gas station seemed to float in an infinite void. The road that had brought them there had completely disappeared, replaced by a sea of darkness. "That's not possible," he muttered, trying to find logic in something illogical. Laura, still inside the car, opened the diary again, flipping through the pages desperately. The photos she had seen on television now seemed to form a pattern. They were faces of people who had disappeared there, at the same gas station, over the years. Names and dates now filled the previously blank pages, as if they were being written as she watched. The indistinct figure Alex had seen before now moved in the shadows around the store. She was tall, with distorted features, and seemed to be watching them from afar. "We need to go back to the store," Laura said. "Getting out of the car? Why go back?" Alex asked, confused. "Maybe there's something there that explains what's happening, or how we get out of here." With no other options, Alex agreed. They ran back to the store, feeling the weight of a pair of invisible eyes following them. The radio went silent abruptly, leaving the store plunged into an unsettling silence. Alex looked around, searching for the source of the previous sound, while Laura remained motionless, clutching the diary tightly. "We have to get out of here," he said, holding her arm. Laura nodded, but something at the back of the store caught her attention. A partially opened door revealed stairs that descended to a dark basement. She felt a mix of curiosity and fear, but Alex pulled her away before she could get closer. "Not now. Let's go," he insisted. Outside, the car was waiting. Alex tried to start the engine, but it just grumbled, refusing to start. He tried again, turning the key harder, but the result was the same. Great! Car broken down in the middle of nowhere, he grumbled, hitting the steering wheel. Laura looked out the window at the road. Something seemed different. The trees that had been static before now seemed closer, as if they had moved. The darkness around them seemed thicker, swallowing up the details of the horizon. Alex, something's wrong. The road. It's not like it used to be. He got out of the car and looked back, trying to understand what Laura was saying. It was true. The gas station seemed to float in an infinite void. The road that had brought them there had completely disappeared, replaced by a sea of darkness. That's not possible, he muttered, trying to find logic in something illogical. Laura, still inside the car, opened the diary again, flipping through the pages desperately. The photos she had seen on television now seemed to form a pattern. They were the faces of people who had disappeared there, at the same gas station, over the years. Names and dates now filled the previously blank pages, as if they were being written while she watched. The indistinct figure Alex had seen earlier now moved in the shadows around the store. It was tall, with distorted contours, and seemed to be watching them from afar. "We need to go back to the store," Laura said, getting out of the car. "Why go back?" Alex asked, confused. "Maybe there's something there that explains what's happening, or how we got out of here." With no other options, Alex agreed. They ran back to the store, feeling the weight of a pair of invisible eyes following them. Back in the store, Alex locked the door behind them, even though she knew it wouldn't protect them. Laura went straight to the counter, picking up the diary again. She quickly flipped through the pages, searching for something that might help them. "There has to be something here," she whispered, ignoring the growing sound of footsteps outside. The radio crackled again, emitting incoherent words amid the static. Amid the crackling, a hoarse male voice emerged. "Pay the price." Alex looked at Laura, but before he could say anything, the sound of breaking glass made them turn. The front window was cracked, as if something had hit it hard outside. Across the way, the figure he had glimpsed earlier was now closer, standing in the flickering light of the gas station sign. It was a man, but his body was horribly burned, flesh melted and ash falling from his skin. His eyes, bright and oppressive, seemed to pierce straight into the soul of whoever looked at them. "Don't look at him," Laura whispered, grabbing Alex's arm. The burned man began to move slowly, his footsteps echoing on the floor of the gas station. Each movement seemed to bring with it a smell of smoke and burning flesh. Alex tried to think quickly, but his mind was racing. "This way," Laura said, pulling him toward the back of the store. She had seen the door to the basement again, and even though she didn't know what they would find there, it was better than staying above ground. They ran toward the door as the sound of shattering glass chased them. The figure was now inside the store, and objects began to fly off the shelves. The radio played a disturbing melody, and the hoarse voice continued to whisper threats. When they reached the door, they realized it was locked with a heavy padlock. Laura pulled desperately, while Alex looked back, seeing the burned man slowly approaching. "It won't open," Laura screamed, feeling tears form. Alex looked around and found an iron bar lying next to a shelf. He used it to strike the padlock repeatedly, as the burned man got closer and closer. Finally, with one last blow, the lock broke. They opened the door and hurried down the stairs, leaving the figure above them, standing at the top of the stairs, watching them. The basement was even more claustrophobic than Laura had imagined. The dim lighting came from old light bulbs, hanging on wires, flickering irregularly. The floor was cold concrete, and the walls were covered in soot, as if a fire had passed through them. "Do you feel that?" Laura asked, looking at Alex. He nodded. The air was heavy, filled with a metallic smell and a stifling heat, as if there were still glowing embers beneath the floor. But beyond that, there was something else. The feeling that they were being watched. As they explored the space, they noticed objects scattered around the basement. Old toys, burned clothes, and even charred documents. It was like a repository for the remains of interrupted lives. In the center of the basement, a wooden table caught their attention. On top of it was a small chest with a shiny golden key, completely different from anything they had seen before. "This must be important," Laura said, picking up the key. As soon as she touched it, she felt a shock go through her body, and her vision blurred. She saw flashes of images. People entering the station, being chased by the burned figure, and never leaving. In all the visions, the key was present, always linked to the tragic fate of the victims. "Laura, what happened?" Alex caught her before she fell to the floor. "It's the way out, but it's not that simple," she replied, panting. Before they could process what to do, the sound of footsteps echoed through the basement. The burned man was slowly descending the stairs, his presence making the lights flicker even faster. "We have to go now," Alex shouted, pulling Laura away from the table. They ran to the back of the basement, where they found another locked door. The golden key seemed to be the only solution. Laura inserted it into the lock, but hesitated as she turned it. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the space, hoarse and terrifying. "To leave. One of you must stay." Laura and Alex exchanged desperate glances. It was an impossible choice, but the voice insisted. "Only one will leave. The price must be paid." "We will not do this," Alex said, holding Laura's hand. But the burned man was already too close. The heat was intensifying, and they could feel the pain in their bodies, as if they were being burned alive. "I will not leave him," Laura said, tears in her eyes. "Neither will I leave you," Alex replied, squeezing her hand. They turned the key together, hearing the sound of the lock unlocking. The door opened, revealing a dark tunnel. Without thinking, they ran, leaving behind the burned man and the echoes of his macabre laughter. The tunnel seemed to have no end. Alex and Laura ran breathlessly, guided only by the dim light of a distant lamp. The air there was even denser, and each step seemed to pull them down, as if something invisible was trying to prevent their escape. "Do you think this will get us out?" Laura asked, her voice cracked with exhaustion. "We have no other option," Alex replied, without slowing down. Finally, they reached the end of the tunnel, where a metal staircase led upward. At the top, there was a skylight that seemed to be the exit. The light was dim, but enough to rekindle hope in both of them. "Come on, we're almost there," Alex said, helping Laura climb up first. She reached the skylight and pushed hard, but something stopped her. On the other side, an invisible barrier seemed to block the passage. Desperate, she pushed again, but the obstacle was impenetrable. "It's locked," Laura shouted as Alex rushed to help her. Then the hoarse voice echoed again, this time clearer and closer. "You defied the rules. Now you will both pay the price." Suddenly, the tunnel began to shake, and the familiar heat returned, more intense than ever. The burned man was there, at the foot of the stairs, staring at them with his bright, empty eyes. "No, we left together," Laura screamed, holding Alex's hand tightly. The figure only smiled, a distorted smile, before raising his burning hand. The heat enveloped them, and for a moment, everything went white. When the light faded, Laura and Alex were back in the car, parked at the same gas station. The engine was running, and the road ahead seemed clear, as if nothing had happened. They exchanged a look, trying to understand. "Are we free?" Alex asked. Laura glanced in the rearview mirror and saw something that made her freeze. At the back of the store, through the dusty glass, the burned man watched them, motionless. Without saying a word, Alex stepped on the gas, leaving the gas station behind. But deep in their hearts, they knew that something was following them. The road seemed endless, and the shadows around them moved as if they had a life of their own. In the back seat, the diary was now closed, with the phrase on the cover once again legible. "The price has been paid for now." Do you think Alex and Laura managed to escape this nightmare? Or is the price they paid just the beginning of something even darker? Leave your opinion in the comments below. What would you do if you were in their shoes? Feel free to share your horror story or something mysterious that has happened to you. Let's talk. If you want more stories like this, with real horror stories and supernatural mysteries, subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. Don't miss the next video, where we explore the limits of the impossible. Until then, and remember, there is always something watching you.